Hey everyone, this is Michelle Pollock, a producer here in the audiobook department for Manuscripts LLC, coming back at you with another workshop to talk all about how to prepare your voice for narration and the aspects that go into that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into that and get started. Okay, so preparing your voice for narration. Why is vocal preparation important? Warming up your voice prior to narrating helps to stretch and warm up your vocal cords and also helps to clear your throat. In addition, warming up can also help with breath support throughout your vocal work. Much like our body needs to warm up its muscles prior to exercising, unless we pull a muscle or cause injury, our vocal cords are also a muscle that needs to be warmed up unless we strain them or cause vocal injury. Along with that, vocal preparation can loosen and relax the muscles in your face, prepare your ability for clear and precise speech, and ensure that you feel well enough to actually narrate. So, how does vocal preparation improve your narration? Your voice is an instrument, whether you use it for singing, talking, speech giving, narration, etc. The quickest way to improve your voice in performance narration and on record is to train with vocal preparation to open up your voice, decrease tension, increase strength, and improve tone and breath support. Training will not take away your style as far as your flair for talking, the way that you talk. It will only help to improve your voice and the presentation overall. So let's talk about preparation. First thing that we want to talk about is vocal warm ups. Warming up works the muscles. By warming up before you start narrating, you give your vocal muscles a chance to loosen up and relax. Releasing tension from the body and voice also reduces your chances of injuring your voice, as we just kind of went over in that previous clip. By stretching your vocal cords, you're also better prepared to handle vocal intonation, emphasis, and overall breath support. So examples of some warm-ups that you can do. And if you're using the vocal warm-up that I shared with you for your vocal coaching, that 100% is a wonderful video to follow along with. However, as a lot of you might have heard me say later in your vocal coaching courses, the best thing to do is to go to YouTube and actually find a beginning singer's vocal warm-up video that you feel comfortable with, that's in your range. And again, doesn't really need to be very long. 10 minutes at the most is always great. And what you'll see in those vocal warm-up videos, for any of you who've already watched one or haven't done so yet, these are some example of warm-ups that you can either do on your own or that you can follow along with in a video, which you'll probably see being used in a singing exercise video. So those examples are the Yonsei technique, humming warm-ups, vocal straw exercise, lip buzz vocal warm-up, a tongue trill exercise, jaw loosening exercises, siren slides, and vocal slides. So now we'll kind of talk a little bit about what each of these are. So one, the yawn sigh technique. For this quick vocal exercise, simply yawn or take in air with your mouth closed, then exhale through your nose as if you were sighing. This will help to relax your voice and improve its range. The other way that you can do this is to open your mouth and do a yawn sigh as well. So it doesn't also necessarily have to do it with your mouth closed. In this way, they're telling you to take in air with your mouth closed, so through your nose, and then exhale through your nose like you're sighing as well. So that actually will help open up your sinus area and make sure that your nose is clear as well. So basically, you're doing a but with your mouth closed. Now, another version of this exercise is also if you go and you start from on high and you go down low with your mouth open. And the idea is to elongate your jaw, which of course helps work the muscles in your jaw, but then also creates a nice sound as you lift your soft palate up top. So this is kind of an opening of the senses sort of one. You can also go backwards and start from the bottom and go back up where you go, oh. So that's what the Yonsei technique is. Humming warm-ups is one of the best vocal warm-ups because it doesn't put a lot of strain on your vocal cords. So if you already feel like you might have a little bit of a sore throat, but you're trying to work through it, this would probably be the better warm-up to utilize so that you're not putting a ton of tension onto your vocal cords or your throat. Also, of course, in that case, there should be other measures that you're taking to help with soothing that sore throat, which is some stuff that we'll talk about later on. In this case, you'll place the tip of your tongue behind your bottom front teeth and hum up and down the major scale while keeping your mouth closed. Each note should sound like a including the H sound is less taxing on your voice. So the idea here is going to be like, I'm not right on the right scale. Sometimes I gotta have a piano here to give me my notes, but essentially that's what you're doing. You're gonna press your tongue down to the bottom front teeth and you're gonna hum up and down that major scale. 3, the vocal straw exercise. To perform this exercise, you're going to take a straw and hum through it. So you're going to start at the bottom of your range and slide up to the top slowly and evenly. Then hum your favorite song through the straw. You can also place the straw in a partially full glass of liquid and blow controlled bubbles into the glass. And for breath support, this is also a great exercise. So it kind of corresponds to breath support exercises that you can do as well if you're having a hard time with breath support. So essentially what they're talking about is just taking any old straw that you have. In this case, I'm just going to pull this out of my cup here. So any kind of straw, and then you're going to blow through it and you're going to make noise blowing through it. As you can see, that's a hugely different sound. And it actually works a lot of different muscles in your mouth. You're going to probably find that this one, if you're not a singer or not somebody used to doing this kind of exercise, it's actually kind of difficult to do initially, and you do get tired from it a little bit faster. So the other thing, of course, like it said, is that you can sing your favorite song, hum your favorite song through the straw. And then of course, for breath support, blowing, the straw into liquid like water to create controlled bubbles in a glass. And the idea is to kind of try to create those consistent bubbles for as long as you can in a single breath. 4, lip buzz vocal warm-up. So as far as vocal warm-ups go, the lip buzz, or lip trill as it is also called, is very simple and probably one of the most common ones you're going to find in a lot of warm-up videos. This goal is to make a motorboat sound, making your lips vibrate as you blow air through your mouth and nose, so you can incorporate pitch slides as well. Again, this is to help with your vocal cords if you're doing the pitch slides, but it's also, again, a really great space where it's warming up your lips, it's warming up your cheeks. Some people can't do it without touching here, which is totally fine. And it's just basically going and so on and so forth, and going up and down the scales, or just and holding it for as long as you can. For those of us who have done it for a while, you might not need to use your fingers, but for some people, they need to use their fingers just kind of placed here to create the tension to help do that trill for a bit longer. Don't worry if you can't hold it for a long time, though. It's one of those things where you have to get used to it, and just know it's going to make your face feel a little funny after a while, because it is a vibration and it is going to leave you feeling kind of tingly up in the front of your face. Number 5 is the tongue trill exercise, and the tongue trill vocal exercise is difficult for some singers, or for anyone trying this out. So just know that this one is more for people who are advanced and just looking for a little bit of fun with their exercises. But it involves curling your tongue and rolling your R's as you go through your range from low to high. I personally struggle with this one, so I'm not going to do an example here for you because I'll probably just mess it up. But this one can be tricky, especially if you have a hard time rolling your R's the way that I do. I usually have to roll my R's in the back of my throat to get that sound when you're trying to do a rolled R. I have a really hard time getting my tongue to do it. So we're going to skip the example on this one, but by all means, if you want to find an example, YouTube is full of them. So feel free to go to YouTube and look that up. Oops, gotta go back. Click that button too soon. Jaw loosening exercises. When singing or narrating, you want to drop your jaw lower than when you are just talking. With your finger, you can trace back along your jawline from your chin to your ear. That curved space between your jaw and your ear is where you want to drop your jaw, and pretend that you are yawning with your mouth closed and feel where your jaw actually drops. Just avoid dropping your chin. So you want to keep your mouth closed and drop your jaw inside with your mouth closed the way that you would if you were yawning. So you're going to be able to feel that if you keep your fingers back here. Now, they do say to try and avoid dropping your chin. That can be pretty difficult to do. I struggle with that as well. But again, it's just to kind of loosen your jaw. Some other things that you can do is kind of rotate your jaw from side to side without opening your mouth. But that's a really great way to just kind of get your jaw nice and loose. The vocal sirens exercise, much like the pitch glide, the siren exercise takes an O sound and gradually goes from the lowest note of range to the highest and back down. Like a siren for an emergency vehicle, the sound is continuous and covers the tone between the notes. So again, this is kind of like coming back to that yawning exercise, only this is focusing more on an ooh sound rather than a yawn. So you're going to go ooh. And again, this is to warm up your vocals more or less, really get your vocal cords engaged and to give you the chance to slide up and down the scales. And the idea is you can also change that ooh sound by lowering your jaw and creating a more elongated O. So that'll be what singers do when they're trying to create different sounds. It depends on how closed your mouth is versus how wide your mouth is. Try experimenting with it, and that'll also give you a chance to work on your vocal exercises there. And 8 is the vocal slides technique. So this technique is also known as a portamento, which is Italian for the act of carrying. Much like the siren exercise, you're going to slide from one note to the next in your range, but you don't sing the in-between notes. So this is, again, a more complex vocal exercise for people who have a little bit more practice. You're probably not going to see this in a beginning singer's warm up. Fortunately, without a piano, I can't really do this one as well because, again, you're going to be sliding from one note to the next in your range. But if you do want to try this one, I highly suggest having something to guide you along from note to note because you're not going to be doing every note within the range. You're going to skip from the major notes in the range, not the in between. So that's just something to keep in mind for that one. But these are 8 really great initial warm-ups. Most of them are beginning or can be done at any level. And then a couple, as you see here, are a little bit more advanced for those of you who are just looking for something kind of fun to do or maybe a challenge for you as you're getting through your warm-ups. Obviously, you don't have to do any of these by yourself. Like I said, the best thing to do is go to YouTube, find a beginning singer's warm-up video to follow along with and use that for helping you to warm up anytime that you prepare to record. So, next thing that's really important when you are preparing your voice, part of that preparation includes breath support. So, appropriate breathing is also essential for voice projection. Appropriate breathing allows our vocal folds to vibrate strongly and freely to provide us with a strong, clear voice. When we are not breathing effectively, then our vocal folds do not efficiently vibrate, which can cause a low voice volume and vocal strain. What this means. For singing and narration, the issue is typically one of three things: not enough breath, tension in the breath, or lack of proper tension in the diaphragm. The diaphragm is your muscle that causes breath. The lungs merely transfer oxygen and carbon dioxide back and forth from the bloodstream. So that's not actually when you breathe in, you're not actually taking air into your lungs. That's just the transfer of the oxygen. What you're actually breathing into is your diaphragm, and it expands, causing a vacuum in the lungs, and the air fills the vacuum. So when people breathe out in everyday life, the diaphragm relaxes and air is pushed out of the lungs. In singing, or in this case, narration, the diaphragm stays engaged throughout the time right before a sound is made right before a sound is made to the end of the sound, which provides you with better breath and sound support to whatever it is that you are speaking or saying. It'll also stop you from, like, if you're in the getting to the end of a sentence, you're not going to run out of breath and then you're not going to be able to say what you were trying to say because you'll have that breath support that helps you. Something to think of, your diaphragm is going to be right here underneath your rib cage. So it's usually going to be right here. And if you make yourself breathe in and focus on filling your stomach rather than your chest, so you don't want your shoulders to rise, you will feel your diaphragm engaging. If you're somebody who's already had training like me, when I take smaller breaths, when I talk, I can feel my diaphragm actually constantly flexing in and out because it is doing its work. A lot of people who don't think about this actually don't actively engage it. And that's why you see people's shoulders rise up and down because they're just breathing into the base, very exterior part here of their lungs rather than deep and down. When you yawn, your diaphragm is fully engaged. So think about it when you yawn, that kind of breath, that's what you're taking in when you're trying to engage your diaphragm. So it's going to be like this big, and you should feel it expand. It should be a little bit hard. And then when you release it, so you'll see a little movement here, but that's just because your whole body is engaging there. But for the most part, you shouldn't really see your shoulders coming up really high. It should just be as your whole area fills in here, and then you're using that breath that you've taken in from your diaphragm and then releasing it slowly as you talk, as you use it to get through your sentences. And obviously you don't want to go so long in between those sentences, even with a nice big breath support, that you're constantly feeling like you're running out and having to take a big breath to continue on. So, common issues with breathing: shallow breath, breathing with tension in the throat, not enough diaphragm engagement leading to breathy sounds, or breathing too late before singing or narrating. How to breathe properly. So, some target skills include increasing the lung capacity or available breath supply, practicing breathing patterns for speaking, exercising, relaxing, etc., taking in more air or using bigger breaths, breathing from the diaphragm or belly instead of shallow chest breathings where the shoulders raise up, as I was just showing you guys. So, speaking from your diaphragm. When narrating, it is vitally important to use proper breathing techniques to avoid hurting your voice and to help support it through your entire narration. It is most common to breathe from the chest during everyday activities, including speaking, but narrating requires breathing from the diaphragm. Proper breathing gives your voice more power, more control, and a fuller, more expressive tone. Speaking from your diaphragm also helps to avoid straining your voice. Your body should be relaxed and balanced with your weight slightly forward. So when you're sitting, your back straight, just a little forward in your chair. What is your diaphragm? The diaphragm is the muscle between your chest and your belly that governs how much air you inhale and exhale when you breathe, which is what I said right about here. You're going to find that right about underneath your rib cage, just before your belly actually starts. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Everybody has different sizes to their rib cage as far as like how long it might be, how short it might be, and how high their waistline is to where their belly starts. So play around with it a little bit. You will be able to kind of tell when you're breathing in. It doesn't feel like your belly. There's like a little muscle that's right there. That is your diaphragm. The sound of your voice doesn't come from your diaphragm, as we discussed, of course. The sound is generated by vibrations of your vocal cords. So the sound is coming from your vocal cords, but the vibrations are caused by air being pushed out of your lungs. So your diaphragm is what controls the pushing and is responsible for putting power behind your voice. That's why when they say you've got like a belting soprano, that's what they do. They're belters because they have a big, very strong diaphragm that allows them to push out a lot of air very heavily for a long period of time to create a really big, really bright sound. I personally am a belting soprano. I'm the kind of person who has a naturally booming voice because when I speak, my voice is well supported in that area as well. So when I am doing narrations or when I'm talking to people, I often have to be mindful of how loud my voice gets. I am like the person growing up, my mom used to tell me, Michelle, lower your voice. So if you're like me, just know you're not alone. All right, breathing exercise. These are a couple of different exercises to help you with breathing if you are struggling to find breath support or you need to work on your capacity for holding breath within your diaphragm. Practice slow breaths. Inhale through your mouth or nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 8 seconds, then exhale for 8 more seconds. So this is very similar to the idea of like meditative breathing. When you breathe in for so long, you hold it, and then you exhale it for the same amount of time. Try to keep all of your muscles relaxed during this whole exercise and repeat it about 4 times. And you can increase the duration of how long you pull the breath in, how long you hold it, how long you release it for. The longer you can go, the stronger your diaphragm becomes. So obviously, if you don't have really good breath support in that regard, start low, work your way up. But again, this is one of those great breathing exercises that a lot of people who do yoga or meditation also do in order to help them get into a more relaxed Zen sort of state. That's what you might find happening with this. But again, it's going to help really increase the ability of your diaphragm to hold air, both when you're taking it in and when you're letting it out through speech. Panting. Panting helps develop stamina. By training your muscles to rapidly expand and contract, you will be able to develop your strength. And to do this exercise, you're going to bring your tongue out like a puppy, just let it hang. Place your fist between your ribs and sing the notes of a scale by vocalizing ha on each one. Your fist should move in and out with the diaphragm movement, and each scale with a long sigh to relax. So when you first start, putting your tongue out might seem kind of silly, but it definitely does help to get you used to this exercise. Once you get used to it, though, you don't have to have your tongue hanging out. I call it the laughing exercise because essentially what you're doing is you're going ha 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 on one breath. So it's basically trying to get out your ha's. You start off at a relatively good rhythm, and then as you get better and you want those ha's to be Very staccato, so you're getting that ha every single time. It shouldn't sound like ha 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 ha. Ha. It should be ha 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 ha. Ha. You should hear that sound. So if you're not hearing that, it means you're going too fast and you're not enunciating the ha through that staccato breath, and that is what we want. You want that staccato because without it, you're just kind of blowing air out and making a sound essentially. So the better you get at this, the longer you're able to go, the faster you might be able to go while still getting that really nice staccato ha on that. 3, exhale on a hiss. So stand up straight, relax your body. This will also relax your diaphragm and release any tension that could prevent you from singing or speaking incorrectly. You're going to breathe in through your mouth, count to 5, and as you breathe, bring the air deep into your lungs. A singer's breath should not make your chest puff out or your shoulders rise. Instead, your belly should expand outward. So again, we're breathing down into the diaphragm. And then you're going to exhale and count to 9. While exhaling, make a hissing noise that sounds like the first letter of the word sizzle. So, or like the s of a snake, or the sound that you hear when you pop a soda bottle and you turn the soda bottle and air needs to be released. By the time you are done counting, all the air should be expelled from your lungs. Now, granted, for people who have a bigger breath support, you're probably going to be able to hiss for a heck of a lot longer. I know for me, in any kind of singing classes I did, this became a competition to see who could go the longest. So the better you get at this, the longer you're able to hold that sound. But essentially, it's going to sound something like this. I'm going to stop it there because if I go for as long as I can go, we'll be sitting here for a little while. But that's essentially what it should sound like. The longer you can hold it, that tells you the better your breath support is. Because the idea is taking a big breath, but then control how much air you're letting out to create that sound so that it lasts for as long as it possibly can before you run out of breath. The other breathing exercise, which I don't have listed here because we saw it earlier, is the straw one, where you take a straw and you blow through it, blow bubbles consistently into water, and try to keep those bubbles consistent for as long as possible. So that is another one that you can work on. Using straws to breathe in and out of is another great way to just kind of get used to being able to take in as much air as possible through a small little bit, and then utilizing that air to the best of your ability from the support of your diaphragm. So straws are great for that kind of exercise. Now, we're going to talk about proper posture. Why is proper sitting posture important when narrating? Good posture can be defined as the stance achieved that allows for an aligned spine, not twisted, and joints that are not bent. Not only does proper posture enhance your breathing, but it also optimizes it, resulting in improved tone, projection, and a better sounding voice when narrating. Now, I know that it is most common when performing that people say that you should be standing, especially if you're a singer, you want to be standing so you can fully support. However, for narrating an audiobook, we don't want you standing. First off, you might stand and then you might lock your knees. And if you're standing for an hour straight with locked knees, you might pass out. So you'll cut off blood flow to your body. And that's one big thing that we're taught in choir not to do, is to not stand with our knees fully straight. You have to have them knocked just a little bit so that you create that bend to keep your knees from losing blood flow. Now, the workaround, even for singers, if they can't stand, the workaround is proper sitting posture. And we are highly suggesting that if you are doing an audiobook with us, that you sit when you are recording. This will provide you with better consistency for your voice and narration when you're recording from one day to the next, especially when you have your setup set the way that it is. And you might not always stand in the same position or at the same angle from a day to day if you're doing a standing one. And on top of that, when you're standing, it sometimes leads to shuffling or kind of movement when you shouldn't really be moving, where sitting allows you to stay a little bit better planted without necessarily needing to move a lot to adjust or to relieve pressure on your feet, things like that. So 100% when recording our audiobook, please sit. Just remember proper posture when you're sitting. So tips for good posture. Sit up straight, maintain an upright position, keeping your spine aligned. Keep your shoulders back and relaxed. You want to avoid slumping or hunching your shoulders, allowing them to rest comfortably, and avoid tension in your upper body. Again, as we said, you might find yourself leaning forward just slightly, which is totally fine as long as your back is aligned and straight and your shoulders are loose and not tense. You're totally fine to lean forward just slightly in order to create that optimal narration tone for your vocal cords and your voice. And of course, the idea is to always be about this far from wherever you have your microphone set up. I should also then tell you as well that when in having your microphone set up, you do want it to have it in front of your face. You don't want it to have it off to the side, because if you're sitting here trying to read and you're talking and you're sitting straight, but your head is turned, you're going to create a kink in your neck. So definitely make sure that you always have the ability to look forward and to speak forward into your microphone as you're going. 3, sit solidly in your chair with your feet flat on the floor and avoid adjusting or moving. Establish a stable foundation in your seat down to your feet and try to remain unmovable throughout the recording. So if you have a lovely little wheelie chair like I do, try not to sit in your chair while you're talking in your microphone going like, yeah, or fidgeting. I know that for some of us, like myself, when especially if you're somebody who suffers from ADHD, it can be a little bit tricky to keep yourself from moving about as you do your recording, especially if you're like trying to get through it and you're just not thinking about it. But do try to keep yourself as still as possible, because that kind of movement, any squeaks or any clothing shifting that comes from that, may very well get picked up in your microphone, because the microphones are they're very good quality. They're very sensitive. So they are going to pick up that kind of sound. You really don't want to have that in your recordings, because you don't want to have to go back and re-record if we can't get rid of that sound in the post-production. So try to avoid movement. Keep your chin straight and aligned with the rest of your body. So avoid jutting your chin forward or tucking it in too much. So it should just be the natural feeling of where your chin should sit when you're looking forward straight ahead with a straight spine. You don't want to be having to do anything else. And again, that comes back into like, don't record with your microphone over here while you're looking at your script from your peripheral. Everything should be straight on. So now we're going to talk a little bit about when and how long you should record. Now, when should you record? Choosing a time to record will vary from person to person based on their own personal schedule, timing, and when they can actively prepare to record. And here are a couple of things to keep in mind when picking out a time to record during your day. 1, avoid recording after waking up, especially right after waking up or just before going to bed. Morning voice is a real thing, and I'm sure you guys have all dealt with it before. When you wake up, your voice is craggly and you don't want to talk yet because you can tell it's like a strain to do so and it doesn't sound right. That is morning voice, and you need to give your throat and your vocal cords a chance to actually wake up, just like the rest of your body starts to wake up as you get up and start moving. Sometimes after you do some stretching, that's the same thing for your vocal cords. Even with a warm up, you still want to give your voice and vocals a chance to warm up naturally before forcing them into actual warm ups through a warm up video or exercise. Avoid recording after a long day of talking. If you have had to use your voice excessively, it is best to avoid adding further strain to it by recording for any length of time. This includes recording at the end of the day, even if you haven't done a lot of talking. If you are physically tired, your voice will sound that way too. And some people think that that's not true, but it is. And you can tell, especially to somebody who listens to people talking or singing consistently over a long period of time. On top of that too, you're going to probably have a little extra vocal gravel in your voice by the end of the day. That is just naturally what happens to your throat as you eat and drink and talk throughout the day. So you definitely want to be in a position where you're energetic, you have energy, you haven't eaten in a while, but it's not right after you've woken up, and it's not just before you're about to go to bed when your body is tired and it's starting to like get into the mode where it wants to relax. 3, avoid recording right after eating or drinking. If the beverage was water or tea, you were fine, because that's what we suggest having with you when you are recording to help keep your throat hydrated, keep to keep it hydrated, to keep it from getting too dry, or if you're needing to soothe it after a lot of talking in your narration. But anything else, food or drink wise, can clog up your throat, and your vocals will need time to clear first. So this includes anything that's like dairy, cream, um, anything that's super carby, stuff that just like really gets stuck in your throat. Food of any kind, quite honestly, is just not going to be ideal to do any kind of recording right after eating. You want to definitely give yourself like maybe a 30 to 40-minute break so that you can clear your throat out with some water or hot tea, just drinking it consistently, making sure that your throat doesn't feel gunked up or anything like that. And then you can proceed with recording. Now, during your recording, of course, as any of you who've already done your vocal coaching with me, things that are great to have on you is either going to be water, room temperature, or warm water while you're recording. Because again, if you add ice into it, that is like throwing yourself into a cold pool and your muscles tensing up. You can tense your vocal cords by dousing them with ice cold water in the middle of a recording. So you don't want to do that. The whole idea is to keep this nice, loose, and warm. So warm water, room temperature water is best. Tea is even better. Avoid adding a ton of honey to your tea. A teaspoon to 2 teaspoons at most, if your throat's a little sore, is great. If you have a little bit of a in your throat and you feel like you're constantly having to clear it, half squeezed fresh lemon in your tea is always great. That acidity will help to kind of clear out whatever's gunking you down. And a combination of the two can be a great combo in kind of helping both issues if you're having an issue where your throat's sore and you're also constantly clearing it. Again, for the lemon though, make sure it is fresh lemon, fresh squeezed, not the lemon juice, not lemonade that has a lot of extra sugar in both of those instances. And sugar is absolutely horrible on your throat, especially if it's already sore. Another thing to keep in mind for some people, green tea will actually dry your mouth out. So avoid drinking a straight green tea. If you have tea at all, I would suggest a black tea as best for that. Um, Spiced black teas are okay, but you want to definitely avoid them being too spiced. Like I wouldn't suggest a chai, but an Earl Grey or a English breakfast would probably be fine if you're drinking that pretty straight or with a little honey or lemon. If you're one of those lucky few who green tea doesn't affect you and dry your mouth out, then by all means, please have some green tea. That's great. You can usually avoid the issue with the dry mouth on green tea if you add a little bit of lemon or honey as well. Again, that'll help to kind of keep your mouth feeling a little bit more, as I know not a lot of people like this word, but for lack of better word, moist. Keep your mouth from drying out at least. So, how long should you record? This is also another thing that will vary from person to person based on experience with narration or vocal performance in general. However, most often we would not suggest going longer than about an hour to 2 hours in a single sitting for recording, unless you are somebody who is used to performance and you are used to going for longer periods of time and you know that you're not going to cause any damage to your throat or your vocal cords, then you can definitely kind of feel that out for yourself. But even I, as somebody who has done professional work for singing and has performed in shows, I would not record straight for longer than 2 hours if I could avoid it. Plus, going over 2 hours is really, especially in cases, unless you're like right down to the wire, you're just gonna wear your voice out slowly but surely, and then the next day you're not gonna want to pick back up and do it again because your voice is probably gonna be tired. So the best way to know how long you can go recording is to practice beforehand and see how your voice feels after 20, 40, and or 60 minutes. And you can work your way up to it too. I know for some of the people who meet with me for their vocal coaching, after that first 20 minutes of non-stop talking as I'm listening to you read, 20 minutes is finished and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm already tired." And I'm like, "That is totally normal." So you might find that after 20 to 40 minutes, you're just like, okay, that's it. That's all I want to do. I can get through a chapter and I will do a chapter every single time I record. And then you plan your schedule out around that. For some people, they can go that full 60 minutes or even a little bit longer. So you really should practice in advance and see what you can handle and see where you feel good. Don't push yourself more than you need to. If your voice starts to feel sore, you start to feel that little like, yeah, I'm tired, listen to your body. So yeah, if at any point your voice is, you feel your voice getting tired or your throat starting to feel sore or dry, stop and take a break. And you can break up your recording time into two smaller recording segments in the same day if you want to. If you're definitely trying to get something out of the way in the single day, give yourself a break time. Go relax your voice, don't talk to anybody, drink some tea, sit quietly, kind of relax, let the tension in your body kind of go away, and then come back and finish your recording in a second segment later on. Or, of course, you can plan out your time in advance and record what you can in a single session each and every day. So don't push yourself beyond what you know you can do in a single sitting. And then just plan to do that, multiple days in a row or every couple of other days. Ultimately, I'm just wanting you to listen to your body. It will tell you if you can keep going or not, but try not to push yourself too hard. Even if you don't feel tired or sore after the first hour or two, it is still better not to push your luck and possibly damage your voice because that does take longer to recover from once you do. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. As long as you plan accordingly, you will have plenty of time to record your book. And yes, that includes my people who have larger books with over the 60,000 word limit. I have seen it done. You just need to pick a schedule and stick to it. So, brief summary. Vocal preparation is important. This can make or break your narration. Do your vocal warm-ups. Find what works for you, either through a vocal warm-up video or doing it by yourself. Find something that works for you and definitely make sure that you're always warming up your vocal cords. Remember breath support. Use breathing exercise to build this use breathing exercises to build this up if you have a hard time with breath support. Keep proper posture and sit instead of stand. Remember sitting straight, chin forward, face forward, relaxed, no tension in the upper body. That way, that will also give your diaphragm the best ability to be able to expand when you're breathing if you're keeping a nice straight torso with low tension in the top here. Be wise on when you record and for how long you record. So remember, plan accordingly. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Set your schedule, stick to your schedule, and don't push yourself beyond the limits that your own body tells you that you have. Ultimately, though, have fun. We can hear that in your voice when you're narrating. So this should be a fun time. If you prepare properly, if you're set to do it, you've got your schedule and you're checking in with your producer and making sure that everything is going smoothly, you will have a good time. You will get your narration done in time and it will sound absolutely amazing. So that is everything I have for you today on preparing your voice for narration. I hope this helps some of you who might feel a little bit iffy about preparation and what to do and what some of your best tips and tricks are. If you have any further questions, of course, in regards to vocal preparation, either for breath support, posture, what you should or shouldn't do, things like that, feel free to reach out to your producers. You can also reach out to me directly in the community chat rooms. If I am your producer, of course, you can hit me up in your updates room. Always happy to jump back in and answer any questions that you have in regards to these items that we've discussed today. But ultimately, I think y'all are going to do great. So here's to seeing you out there getting your audiobooks made. And I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much.